It's the 27th of December, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. It's been a roller coaster ride for the last few weeks as remnants of the Matrix fall. The influence on humanity ran very deep. Deep State has been in the same loop as we are, although we know it and it appears they don't. They have been fighting for power and control, and each group thinks they have a secret system provided by Marduk or some equally powerful entity. They're expecting a big reset on New Year's Eve, but do they even know what that means? And it's part 2 of the Matrix Decoded. How it's powered, its influence on your consciousness, DNA, and more. The secret space program had access to influence you, political systems, financial systems at will, from the inside out. Some of the people you see that are evil aren't even real. Expect certain things to disappear and other things to reappear as our whole reality changes. Is it a reflection, a mirror, or just a perspective?
Tired before the day begins? NAD Plus levels drop 50% after 40. NAD Plus helps your cells bounce back fast. Most supplements give precursors. NAD Plus skips the breakdown, delivering direct, bioavailable power. Support your energy, metabolism, sleep, and stress levels at the cellular level. Join the NAD Plus revolution. Start your journey to a healthier you. Subscribe today.
Well, it's the 27th of December, and it has been probably the longest amount of time ever between reports, and I do apologize for that. It has been super busy, but we're making a lot of progress over here, and today's report will kind of explain to you, at least on the surface level, of kind of what we've been dealing with and a better understanding as to why. So on that note, I just wanted to wish everybody a happy holiday. Most of you have already celebrated, depending on which holiday you're celebrating this season. And we've got one more left to go, and that's New Year's, at least for the next couple of months. And, you know, hopefully it's going to be a great 2026, and we might even have a great 2025 before the end of the year, which is only a few days away. So lots of work still to be done, lots of trying to figure out how things are working and why they are the way they are. So to kind of give you an example of some of the comments that I sometimes get and you know, why people don't generally understand why I'm focusing a lot on the quantum aspect of things. And this particular person says, you know, if you continue to talk about quantum things, you know, everybody wants to talk about politics and the deep state. Actually, not even the deep state, this particular person would like to talk about, you know, government officials and those type of people most of the time. Because he says that the quantum things are too confusing. You know, they're not relative. It's what's relative is what Putin's doing. What's relative is what Xi Jinping is doing and what Trump is doing. These are all relative things, you know, to my life. And I said, well, I think you got it wrong. And I say that from my perspective. And without sharing my perspective on things, I guess, I could see why he would think that, because what really happens in this world is so much more than this person quite obviously could understand. You know, he's always bringing up politics, the financial system, telling me about markets, militaries and intelligence and white hats and gray hats and how they're going to turn things around. And I just have to laugh at it all. And I don't mean that negatively towards some other people out there that really do have the best of intentions, but probably don't even understand sometimes, let me just say, who certain people interview. You know, they don't even understand who they're actually talking to and what they're actually saying when they are talking on their own channel. And I say that from another perspective of mine, in which I've had a lot of experience over the years in talking to varying levels of operatives and all kinds of people around the world, in varying locations and from varying locations, because everyone everywhere in that world speaks in a whole other language than most people would actually understand. A lot of this actually comes across sometimes in your mainstream media too, because mainstream media, yes, it's for you, it's to tell you how to think and tell you how to feel about certain things and to invoke certain emotions within yourself. And most of these things these days don't even end up coming to fruition. They talk about them on mainstream media in order to get you to focus on these things, as we've discussed before, but they don't actually come to fruition. However, a lot of operatives, especially deep state operatives, are on a lot of alt media channels. And when they speak, I actually understand this language now. Even though, yes, they are speaking English in a lot of these cases, it's a different hidden language within the language that you have to understand in order to get the real message of what they're trying to put across to certain people. Sometimes that's other deep state members, and sometimes that is you, to get you to focus on something or believe something that just isn't there or just isn't true. There are certain groups out there that talk about, are you ready to see mass arrests and all these types of things? And, people still hold out hope that they're going to arrest their own people. And in some cases, they're not even people. But I don't really see that actually happening. And it's truly all about a war that is nothing more than a hamster wheel that all of these ladies and gentlemen are running on. In part, some of the people that they talk to are, these elite folk that they all focus on, and, the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum folk and all of these people aren't even actually real. And this is how deep the Matrix actually goes. You've watched the movies, you say, okay, there's Mr. Smith and the Neo guy that, comes in to save us and tries to depart from the Matrix and all these types of things. But if you really knew how real some of that actually is, these people that ask me these questions wouldn't be asking those questions. So in a Matrix, lots of things are possible. In an artificial reality, lots of things are possible, far more than you would ever expect. In some cases, we do see computer-generated images showing up in our mainstream media, meaning there isn't actually someone standing there, or is there, and it's allegedly created by, an AI, that we know, like Chatbot GPT or one of the others out there that create an image of a person and they make them talk, kind of like the talking dogs on YouTube. Yes, that's one version of a computer-generated image, but in a matrix, remember the computer is everything. And unfortunately, this is the world that we have been living in for a very long time. Meaning, some of your elite could actually be computer-generated images. If you were in the same room with them, you could touch them, you could hug them, not like you'd want to do that. But even presidents of certain countries are all computer-generated images created by a matrix. The matrix will insert people to take positions of power within its matrix. There are many, many operatives walking around this planet that are computer-generated images, or in this case, quantum AI-generated images. In our world of actual real Homo sapiens, at least as many as we hope that there are on this planet in comparison to the non-Homo sapiens or computer-generated images that are around. We also have a lot of interference by computer-generated images. And what I mean by that is the control mechanisms of this matrix system are not only overlays, they're within your person. So you could be talking to your spouse or a friend or a neighbor, and all of a sudden they start acting really weird or angry towards you, or you even are repelling someone's energy you didn't repel, who you didn't repel against before. And it's very confusing. Or you could be checking out at the grocery store and all of a sudden the checker starts yelling and screaming at you for no reason. This has been happening a lot lately. And a lot of that is promoted by an AI system in our reality in which we have lived. So computer-generated images, memories, and otherwise within your person will actually affect a lot of what's happening, and kind of, given the fact that it's glitching, badly and disappearing, will kind of give you a little bit more of a deeper dive today into why and how that happens. So as it relates to the people around you kind of going a little crazy lately and yelling and screaming and forgetting things and remembering other things, a lot of this has to do with these generated perceptions. Now, perceptions can actually be emotional perceptions. You could have said nothing to this person but hello, and in their mind, they perceive you basically yelling at them. And none of that is actually true, but it evokes the response from that person towards you. There are a lot of people, going through a lot of upheavals right now because the computer is struggling. Call it a computer. It's a little bit bigger than that, is struggling to take a hold of the current on this planet and maintain that chaos and order it's so loved to have. So much so that one thing that has become apparent over the last couple of weeks as well is you've got varying groups of deep state members out there, and we've talked about them all in previous news reports. A lot of people, especially in alt media, talk about things like the World Economic Forum and, or the shadow government, or, Soros and all these people. And some of them aren't even people. They're computer-generated images, and some of them are just tools for a machine. And not to say that talking about these people, and bringing things to light, hasn't been important in waking up people and kind of baby stepping them into what's really happening out there. There are some people out there too that talk about control systems and matrices and that kind of thing, and that's also important. Timelines, we're also going to kind of address that and what that really means, what it meant as things fall apart. As for the deep state, though, there's a lot of Homo sapiens that work in the deep state too. Not to say they are not influenced, just like the checker I just talked about at the grocery store. They are influenced as well in order to maintain the machine's power and control and do what I call keeping you in the loop. Now, we think of someone who's in the loop. This is an American slang term. I don't know if it's a slang term wherever you are, but keeping someone in the loop means, they know what's going on. They know, what the latest information is. Thanks for keeping me in the loop, people say. However, keeping you in the loop is not a good thing. The loop is basically created by a computer system. And by looping, you are living, we know in the past, lifetime after lifetime, over and over again in the same loop. We know that it is important to keep you on this loop we call a hamster wheel, and where you just go round and round and round and round, never being able to get out of the matrix. And in the deep state's case, they are also in the loop, meaning, sure, they have more knowledge, they might understand how things work, and on certain levels of the deep state, they also understand that there is a massive machine that runs the loop, which contains all our realities, timelines, all the things people talk about escaping from and changing, and one timeline is better than another. And, mostly these timelines are of our creation. I know that sounds really strange, because who would the heck would want to be in a timeline? But in some cases, by small actions and diverted memories and thoughts, we actually are continuing the loop, which is why it's so difficult to get us all out of it. Now, in my position, I have certain rights. That means I can override you in some cases because you don't have knowledge. You are an innocent. You didn't really agree to any of this, but you've been manipulated the same way operatives attempt to manipulate everyone in the world, whether it be through media, governments, or financial systems or otherwise. They're all operatives, and they're all working for the same machine. The interesting thing about the deep state, though, is that something as interesting came to light. So we know or have found out that China had a lot of different systems, and some of them were given by Marduk, and we've talked about this before, and they were told that they were going to be in charge of his new empires. I can see why they would think that based on some other things we found there, we'll talk about in a minute. However, what also came to light over the course of the last week or so, a couple weeks since we talked, is that everybody had one. All different. They all do different things. Those that are fighting for the quote-unquote white or light empire, which is just as dark as the black one, believe that they're doing the right thing. These are your white hats. These are your secret space program operatives on that side of the program. They believe that they are ushering in the age of light and that there's going to be ascension and everything is wonderful. But yet they go into things like, we must maintain the emerald grid. We must maintain if they only knew what that actually was, and maybe they do, or maybe they don't. Or maybe they're just cyborgs. Maybe they're just computer-generated images, which is why they don't deviate from a program being fed into their brain. Because, again, it's just the computer talking. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these people are in positions of power, whether seen or unseen in this world. Meaning we've talked extensively about the fact that there are operatives that actually run governments. Everybody else comes second. Well, some of those operatives also tend to run operatives that are actually Homo sapien and actually organic. This then trickles down into other people that work for the government that are also human. Not to say they're bad people, but you're talking about, people that just want to serve their quote-unquote country and, are in the military, or they work for the FBI, or, those types of folks. I mean, they don't necessarily mean harm to you. They think they're actually protecting you. And they are people, and they go home to their wife and their kids or their husbands, and, and they live their normal life. Problem is that the people they report to are actually computer-generated images in a lot of cases. They are actually part of a machine designed to keep Homo sapiens under their control. When people start to question, especially in the deep state, they start to question their orders and instructions and all of these things. There is a protocol for that. When they're not listening to the computers generated beings, people, in some cases, we've even run into reptilian computer-generated beings that have been driving operatives around, especially in the United States, for a while now. Has happened very strongly over the last couple of weeks. They always insert some kind of figure that people would make people, the average everyday operative, Homo sapien, normal person, make people believe that they're going in the right direction, that they have help from a group somewhere that is stronger and smarter and has more universal royal blood, if you will, or that they might respect because they look different. Maybe they're green or another color or whatever it is. They definitely, these particular instances have happened quite frequently, especially over the last couple of weeks as people start to question what the heck is going on. The machine's influence is not having as much influence anymore. And in a nutshell, you've got the same folks that are computer-generated images giving you a new time, a new day, this is for people that actually work for the deep state or confused people that work for governments or operatives out there, because it's a new day, it's a new time, it's a new alignment with Uranus or the M87 galaxy or this sun flare or the Atlas, whatever that is. They call it a comet. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really make a difference. It's just all a sideshow to a bigger show that's going on, to include keeping the deep state in the loop. So it's not just us folks, the average everyday person out here that must be kept under control, because eventually humans and Homo sapiens will realize just how powerful we actually are when you are not being held down by varying systems we're going to talk about today. However, a lot of the deep state is still in a loop. They're in the same loop that we are. Yeah, they have big egos, and yeah, they like power, and yeah, they want to be presidents, and they want to be under control, and they want to, satiate some need for power and wealth and fame and fortune. And a lot goes for your Hollywood actors and actors around the world, people you see on TV, people you see feeding you media in news outlets around the world. Half of those people are computer-generated images. They're not even real. They're not even real. How do you tell the difference? Well, really, really hard, unless you can look really, really close to see if they actually have a soul. If you have that capability. So, let's talk about the staggering amount of control. So I hope this person that keeps sending me these messages about his ridiculous intelligence agencies and operatives and whatever else he's sending me kind of understands now that half of those people aren't even real. I mean, first of all, they're just computer-generated images that get inserted into your reality to keep the Homo sapiens under control and keep them in the loop. And this is not a loop you want to be in, that's for sure. All of these sideshows and movies that are playing in real life, that is your life, the ability for them to affect your kids to make them go crazy, or your grandkids, or your spouse, or anyone in your peripheral on any given day in order to put you in line is very, very real. And these people you can touch, you can punch, you can hit them, they're going to react just like a person. They're going to bleed, all of these types of things it's very, very real. It's part of your reality. Now, other things that have been happening recently, because the machine is glitching here and there and is having trouble putting things even in its own reality. I had a friend of mine who was out Christmas shopping, and he's pretty intuitive and, kind of awake, aware, and that kind of thing. And he was sitting there at a mall last couple days before Christmas, and he literally was watching people appear and disappear. He was watching everything glitch. And if you've experienced these things, other things that I've had other people tell me too, is that things just disappear. Like, you went to the store and you bought this item and you placed it on the table in this particular spot, and it's just not there. And it's not anywhere to be found. And you didn't pick it up, you didn't take it anywhere, but you absolutely went and got this item and put it on the table. Things are going to start disappearing and other things will start appearing, because remember, everything is formed into this reality for as long as this machine still exists by the machine itself. Meaning, yes, we go to a store, we pay money for items, as an example, like groceries and, clothes, whatever you're buying, Christmas gifts in this case, or holiday gifts. And you think it's yours. But in fact, a lot of it was created by an artificial reality. Now, part of the reason why things have been so difficult on our end, and for a lot of you, is the creation process has been really, really hard. If you are creating something or attempting to create something in which the machine does not want you to create it, it's outside the time, it's outside the timeline, it's outside the process. Homo sapiens bringing in creation from source will be met with resistance in this type of machine situation. Now, as that starts to go away, the process gets easier and easier. Especially things that make you happy, especially things that will make other people happy. It is definitely a ride. Other things that may have affected you in relation to this machine is, the plan for your life was laid out at the moment you were born, even before you were actually born. Now, the plan of source isn't necessarily the plan in which you've been living through. The machine, too, has specific things that it monitors and tries to keep in place in order to make adjustments on how we as a whole are going to live. Meaning, there may be someone who's a bus driver that didn't want to become a bus driver, but they're the bus driver because there needs to be X amount of bus drivers on the planet in order to make the world go round. Or maybe you're a pilot and you didn't want to be a pilot. Maybe you took this position because, you had to feed your family and that's how you were thinking about it. But did they make it impossible for you to feed your family and do something that you really liked? Did they make business loans difficult to get, bank accounts shut down, all kinds of different things? You'll blame the deep state. I'll blame the machine. Now, there's an aspect of the machine that you might find kind of interesting. We call it the Adjustment Bureau. it's a part of the machine. You see, every year, well, it used to be, hasn't happened in a long time. It's running an old program in a loop, but every year on January 1st would be one of the times we would see a total soft reset. The machine would go offline for about a period of 20 minutes, come back online with the instructions to all its computer-generated images that are here and what they were supposed to do for the year, and also instructions and or future memories were uploaded into your head. It's very scary, really. And these were the things that you were going to like, dislike, do, say, and it would be on an individualized basis. You know, depending on where you are in your life and how far away you are from the plan. Now, as far as the average everyday person goes, there are many soft resets that occur in any given year. These could happen, some people I know, they try to reset every hour, every 2 hours. These are your scientists, your people that actually have the capability to change the world, the creators of the world, the light beings of the world. Every time they have a thought about where they're going to go and what they're going to do, in walks the Adjustment Bureau to tell you or move you in the other direction. Your ingredients won't show up. You can't find this specific metal to create this thing. Perhaps this plant, there's a drought and there's no more of that type of plant that cures cancer or some other thing that ails us as humans. You know, there's many things that are orchestrated by the Adjustment Bureau to ensure, oh, no, they can't let this happen. This will mess up the entire timeline, they say. This will screw up the loop, they'll say. All of this is very relative to your life because the Adjustment Bureau is real. And when they can't get you by uploading and downloading your memories, meaning changing your memories past, present, and future, you know, what happened to that formula? Where did I put this? Where did I put that? Oh my gosh, I can't get a job to save my life. You know, I'm having trouble having a family or kids. You know, they don't want you to have kids because it's not part of their plan for you to be in the loop. Not this time around, because maybe last time around you let a whole bunch of people to get to a point where you almost got out of here. You know, and for those people, life is the most difficult. The Adjustment Bureau is not Homo sapien. The Adjustment Bureau are computer-generated, what you would call cyborgs. They are computer-generated images. They are slated for a specific program, part of the matrix, to make adjustments when necessary. And if critical, they will send in people. They look like people, they walk like people, they talk like people, but they are a computer-generated image. They will come into your life. They will be your best friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is they've got to do, some kid that you might feel bad for. When they upload your memories, they know all your buttons. You know, what will make Mary or John turn around? What will make Mary or John decide they're not going to buy that house? Believe it or not, it could be something that simple. You know, what is going to make them change their life? In walks the Adjustment Bureau, and you get your own personal computer-generated image that looks just like a person, walks like a person, touches like a person, looks and appears to have emotions like a person, will play on your emotions, knows your thoughts, it knows how you work, it knows what you want to hear in order to get you to do what it is it wants you to do. And I know all these things are scary, but it's going to get a lot scarier in this report because the truth is the truth. And once you understand the truth of the matter, you'll know how not to let it affect you until we're completely out, which I hope will be soon. It's been a lot bigger of a challenge than I could have possibly imagined. It's not just some crazy, humans walking around the planet. It's even bigger than that because I couldn't figure out where they were all coming from. One day would pass and they'd all be gone. The next day, here they are back. All the Mr. Smiths of the world, all the Johnsons of the world, the secret space program operatives. You get rid of one, the same guy that looks exactly the same shows back up the next day. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? They say that they're inserted and to some degree they're right, but I can't remember the name of that movie there with Tom Cruise where he believes he's the only one with his wife left on the planet and they're supposed to maintain these machines. And, at the end, he finds out there's thousands of him that look just like him. It's kind of like the secret space program, except they're not in storage somewhere. They're just machine generated at will into a reality. What you perceive definitely steers you into different directions in your life, even when it doesn't feel right for you. Things like love override that. You fall in love with one of these things. Believe it or not, it happens all the time. And I don't want you to go around thinking you're crazy and all of a sudden your spouse is a computer-generated image. It would almost seem like the person you meet says all the right things, does all the right things, and whatnot. They even upload images into your dreams about future things or past things that just aren't real. They'll give you nightmares that'll elicit a different response in which the machine absolutely needs to throw you off track, have a bad night's sleep. Believe it or not, a bad night's sleep right before the day that you were supposed to do this or supposed to do that can actually throw you off significantly. Sleep is important for at least this version of Homo sapiens. We need it. They know it. They use it. Now, what does that mean for the deep state? How do they function with or without this machine? Now, the machine generates all kinds of things. Everybody thinks, okay, well, Marduk is dead. Well, it can generate a Marduk at any given moment in time, a giant, 20-foot tall reptile-looking thing, white, and otherwise. Or it can generate a whole species that you've never seen before. We could have the unicorn people show up here. It can do that. As far as the secret space program is concerned, they, number one, the majority of them are computer-generated images. They are operatives. They look like people. They smell like people. They even do interviews on alternative media all the time. See them all the time. And I'm not even going to say names or anything like that, but I see them all the time. They are computer-generated images there to sway you and make you think you are getting information that is correct because they're coming from people that work with Trump, that work with Putin, that work with Prime Minister insert name here, or has just gotten back from Japan or Antarctica, or, they'll show themselves in Alaska and all kinds of different locations. And do they actually frequent these locations? Sure. Do they get on a plane and travel like you? Well, sometimes. Sometimes when they need to move about the world, they don't get on a plane like you. People say, well, they can get on a special plane, for lack of a better term. It's not really a plane. You can go from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth in less than an hour, and that's true. However, that's not even necessary. They are a computer-generated image. They can appear and disappear any place they want to. Do they understand that when they're here? Well, the machine probably tries to maintain some kind of control over what they can and cannot do while they're here, in order to maintain that proper movie in the image in which we live. So about the Adjustment Bureau, you'll see them, you'll be able to see them because they look like people that just aren't right. You might write them off as drug addicts or this or that, or just crazy people, or, feel bad for them in some way, shape, or form. But in some cases, you'll definitely see they don't talk like normal people. They don't walk like normal people. They don't have, it takes them a few moments to have an emotion that should be invoked, that type of thing. So you can definitely tell. And when I talk to these space program people, or have in the past, high level operatives, that kind of thing. Number one, they give me the same line. If I say the cat is black, they will give me the exact same sentence in return. It doesn't matter if I've talked to 20 of them. The same sentence comes back in return. Now, the reason why the same sentence comes back in return is because it also reads my memory, my past, present, and future, what they believe would work for me, what I am prone to or not prone to, accept, like, what would prompt me to do things. Marduk used to laugh all the time about my bleeding heart for people, in that, I actually like people, and they hated that. But by the same token, they also have tried many, many times to use that against me. She will do things because she's trying to help people. And in some cases, now I'm a little wiser about it. And, I make sure that, okay, what are we doing here? That kind of thing. Is it time to do this? Is it time to do that? And if the answer is no, and I understand now to look for the mechanism behind what it is they're saying. But, when I say no to them, they always give me the same line. It's the same 5 sentences or 10 sentences every single time. The same reaction from them, the same attempted manipulation from those people. It's over and over and over and over again, same. And that's how I can tell who we're dealing with. Heck, I live in a town full of them. I should know by now. So, the majority of these Adjustment Bureau people are based in Andromeda and Beijing, which is kind of leads me to believe that some of my suspicions were right. How many of the people walking around China, of the 1.3 billion people in the population of China, are actually real? I'm sure there's plenty of them that are, but how many of them are not? Makes a whole lot more sense based on trips of actually having been there. But the Adjustment Bureau usually comes from there. They can go anywhere they need to go, appear anywhere they need to appear, walk in and out of places like it's nothing because it's not real. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the being in the loop. Now, the loop is filled with lots of knowledge. And knowledge isn't just, I read this book and now I understand how this works better, or hidden knowledge allegedly that the deep state or the secret space program has. Is it hidden from you? To some degree, sure, or was. But being in the loop of knowledge means that artificial memories, past, present, and future memories, I know that doesn't make any sense, but these are things that your mind is going to register as a positive thing for you to do, a thought that comes to your mind. These are things that you may do in the future. So it uploads that information and you feel that you need to go to this place or that place, or this place for dinner or something. It can be something small. It can be something large. You buy a new house. All of the major things that happen in your life can actually be uploaded ahead of time. And to some degree, the information to each individual person would have been reset and uploaded every year on the January 1st. Now, the deep state is expecting this to happen again. They have been talking about it. The Q clock restarted. Everybody's talking about this reset of this loop and this implant or imprint of knowledge that is going to occur, not only to this computer-generated images walking around this planet we call the deep state, but also to the Homo sapiens. In turn, the computer-generated image folk would actually get money as well to carry out the plans for the future year. Now, these are soft resets. By soft resets, I mean, you have some short-term things that need to occur this year in order to keep the entire Homo sapien population in the loop. And those things, it would ensure, and it would move us all around like pawns with knowledge implantation to ensure that we all do our thing. Somebody goes postal, somebody is in a shooting, somebody does this, somebody does that, and it elicits a certain response from everyone else. Fear could be one, chaos is another, anger, happy, sad. I mean, think of all the things we feel when we watch media. Doesn't matter if it's just scrolling through social media, TikTok, could be any kind of social media program, or even on television. You're watching the news, it invokes happiness, sadness. This person died. The feeds of unsolicited, people you are not following has become crazy out there. I don't really have much time to scroll through social media, but on the off chance I actually do, I'm looking at the stuff that's coming up in my feed. I'm like, oh my God, is everybody dying of something? It's kind of like it's some kind of a program. It's really strange. So these are soft resets. Now, hard resets are completely different. Hard resets usually happen when a significant amount of the population of the planet is wiped out in some way, usually a large percentage. Hard resets are only necessary when the machine is lost the majority of humanity, and it needs to take back control. Now, the thing that triggers a hard reset, which is absolutely, oh my gosh, this is what the deep state wants so badly, are a few things. Number one, a near extinction event. So if there were a nuclear war, as an example, that could possibly trigger this type of an event. Now, the only other thing that could trigger a hard reset is actually the representation of source and something or someone from the machine aspect that both agree that the Homo sapien population is at risk. And they agree together to turn the keys. Well, I can tell you that's not happening from Source's side at this moment in time in any way, shape, or form. For that very reason, the deep state and all their respective computer-generated bosses would like to create that near extinction event in order to bypass the other side's authority. They can't manage to make it happen, though. Sure, everybody walked around a little angry for the last couple of weeks. It's been very upsetting. People are acting erratic. People are getting divorced that have been married for years. Yeah, there's a lot of weird things going on as the deep state tries to figure out how to use programs and even their respective computer-generated images, have tried to use programs they know nothing about. This is a constant thing with these people. It's like little boys with big boy toys, and they don't really quite get it because there's more than one side to the coin. They don't even know half the time that they're fighting their own selves from within. Don't tell anybody. This is a secret. I'm giving you secret knowledge, the machine says to their brain, or inserts a thing, that person that walks around and says, look, we're going to give the power to you. We're going to give the power to America. We're going to give the power to England. We're going to give the power to this country or that country. And, you're going to control the financial system. You're going to have all the keys. Here, look. And it dangles a carrot. And they're like, oh, carrot, 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 carrot. By January 1st, you're going to have all the carrots. Yep, just you. Now, don't tell anybody, because if you tell anybody, it's not going to work. And then, boom. Right out from underneath them at the last second. The machine is designed to keep everyone that enters the loop in the loop. Period, end of story. In the loop, in the loop, in the loop. I know the deep state doesn't want to admit it, but you too, my friends, are on a hamster wheel and you're going nowhere. They all say, I watch some of this Q stuff sometimes, or not watch it, I should say, scan it. And they'll be like, boom, yay, we're going to do the thing. We're doing the thing. And then, the next day, doesn't work. I've watched them too, as they try to manipulate grids, not fully understanding what they're manipulating. I've tried, and watched them try to manipulate reality, as we pulled a number of their main sites for doing this recently. And I can see why they felt they were a part of a control system. Perhaps they thought they were in control, but really, they're just a cog in a wheel of a much bigger loop. So let's talk about how they participate. Because you see, each one of the 15 militaries of the SSP had their own system. And they all were supposed to do different things at different times and maintain certain databases and access certain databases and play their own role in the Adjustment Bureau of planet Earth in order to achieve the agenda of which aspect of the much larger system they work for. Because remember, even computer-generated images will fight against each other into infamy. And they don't stop. But unfortunately, we're the kids in the middle. We are the folks that bear the brunt of both of their attempts to try to take control of the Homo sapiens and take control of all the grids, the infinite amount of grids. So we're going to talk about what is a grid. I want to talk deeply about how the loop and how the machine affected you, because it's important to first understand how it works, so that if you feel strange, if you feel like you are entering into another reality, you feel like you're having horrible dreams and physical effects and emotional effects, understanding what it's trying to do to you and understanding how to break out of it is the most important thing for you. Now, ideally, for all of us, if all of the Homo sapiens on this planet were actually joined together and understood what I'm about to tell you, we would have no more loops. We would have no more fake humans. We would have no more elite. We would have no more deep state. They'd be gone in an instant. Doing that is probably next to impossible. However, there's always a workaround. And I can't really say much more than the workaround, but I will tell you how to do this yourself today. But first, you need to understand exactly how it works. So all of these control mechanisms happen at a very small particle level. And our science tells us about quarks and atoms and preons and protons and And if you can imagine particles even smaller, particles that our science doesn't define, probably for a reason, some that are natural and organic and others that are not. This is where the control mechanism actually takes place. So you're going to hear me shuffling some papers over here because I've got lots and lots of notes. So let's talk about DNA for a little bit. DNA, we know as the thing that makes us us. You know, we think about it as living DNA, which controls your soul, you know, that kind of thing, or the things that make you you lifetime after lifetime. We also think of DNA that gives us our color of hair, our eyes, and degrades over time. And they talk about telomeres and telomere extensions and all kinds of things that are coming out now in alternative media. But everything has a DNA. Meaning the makeup of the entire omniverse has a DNA. The makeup of universes has a DNA. The makeup of densities and dimensions have a DNA. And we know them as two strands, you know, of molecules that spin around each other, and they're connected by things like chromosomes and ribosomes. And these are things that our science talks about. So I wanted to kind of pull one of those up so you can understand what I'm talking about here. So this looks like a typical DNA strand, and it looks like there is one sphere on either end, and it's connected by a bit of information that goes back and forth. You know, this is what our science gives us when we ask about, you know, DNA, or ask an AI, you know, like a chatbot GPT, to pull up a DNA molecule. This is what it will give us. Now, in reality, those spheres are not what we think they are, as it relates to the creation of the omniverse, as it relates to the creation of us. And you know my drawing skills, but I'm going to pull up the whiteboard here and kind of tell you a little bit more about it. So we know about, our science will tell us, we have two lines here, and they spin around in a helix, a double helix. Formation. Now, remember, everything is perception. And when you think you see something with your eyes, and that gives you evidence of the existence of something, that's not entirely true. Because seeing something is merely a reflection of light that tells you what an object looks like. Your touch and your senses tell you what it feels like. And your ears, which are also in a helix shape, will tell you what it sounds like. But in reality, it's none of the above. So I've told you before in the past that we have around 36 strands of DNA. And in this particular structure, these little lines that go in between, there should be about 12 of them. The same structure exists throughout the omniverse, and this is all part of the loop. Now, if you were to take this helix formation and look down into it, because remember, it's spinning around, you would see infinite numbers of molecules on either end. And you would actually see them grouped together into threes. And this is what you call a trinity. Now, from each one of these, you have these long strands, and they're going around and around and around in a very strange formation. And if you were to look at it from the side, it would look like two triangles on top of each other, replicated at least 12 times. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So essentially you'd have triangles going this way, triangles going this way, and they're all spinning in different directions. It's important to understand this because this is all part of you recognizing what it is when it occurs. Each one of these particles is what we call dust. Now, it's interfered with significantly, but it's dust. These particles were originally connected to source right here at the center. So as they spin around, there's a gateway that exists that makes this connection. In your body, this would be your heart chakra. As we know it, from the internet and other places. This is the direct center, which lies beneath, in the center of your chest area, and it connects all these three pieces together. When, under normal, natural, organic circumstances, these pieces come together, this point right here will take you to source, to which there is no distance. That means the dust particles that form your mind, or in this case, your consciousness, your ether, Ethereum, and in this particular case, so you have your physical self or your matter. All sing a nice hymn together we call the Song of Source. In harmony and rhythm. That means everything is firing on all levels exactly the way that it should be. Everything is communicating with everything. All is right with the world. The Trinity exists as it should. And you are functioning perfectly. What the machine has done, or what those that created the loop in the machine has done, is interrupted this process on every single level. If this was working properly, Homo sapiens on the planet would actually form a grid, and you would be able to connect with other people on a consciousness level. That's why some people say you can communicate telepathically, as an example. We do it all the time. It's just disrupted, interrupted, that type of thing. And it's not like, hi, how are you? Are you having a good day? Under normal circumstances, that would automatically be relayed. You couldn't help it. In this particular case, you've got to be real close to each other, and you've got to be really aware of what's happening, which is why during the pandemic and other times, they try to keep us apart as much as possible. They know that it is more difficult to control humans, and Homo sapiens, I should say, control Homo sapiens when they are together, because what is inside these particles automatically starts to communicate with each other, especially when there is love involved. Separating people from each other when there is love involved is of the utmost importance, and creating artificial thought processes and knowledge about the other person that may not be conducive to a love relationship is also very, very important. Remembering who we are on a soul level. If you can possibly connect to another person, an actual organic person, here, at that point there, where you both are connecting to source, that is when a co-creation process happens. Bypassing everything that the machine does to control you, at least in the past, because all of this is part of why I haven't been doing reports lately, is extremely difficult. But when love, true love, is involved, it's much, much easier. This is how we find our soulmates. This is how we find people we connect with, that we vibe with on every level, that understands us and we understand them, because the more that love is involved, the easier it is to bypass the system. Now imagine if all Homo sapiens got together, formed a grid around the planet, and all that, and we all liked each other. We weren't so concerned about what country you're from, or you're of this ethnicity, and you're this color, and so-and-so's that color, and you like this political party and I don't like this political party. I mean, you're wearing blue jeans and blue jeans creep me out, and all the other things that our media starts portraying. Imagine if that were the case, we would not be here. And believe you me, the machine knows it. The machine knows absolutely with 100% certainty, and so does the deep state and everyone else, what we are capable of when we are united. I've been saying this ever since I've been talking on social media. When we are united and we see beyond the faults and the imperfections of who we are and what has happened to us, we see beyond that and we see the person for who they truly are at a soul level. There is nothing that machine can absolutely do, which is why it goes to great lengths to insert computer-generated humans in here, deep state people, secret space program operatives that aren't really even people. They're, strange people in your life that come and go, anger you, set you off balance, set you off course. Remember, and I know it might sound ridiculous, but it's a machine. It's all a program. It is all a program. Loss of a job, loss of income, threatening to lose income. This is something that this current administration does all the time, shutdowns, this, that, very disturbing. You might lose your job. You might not get a paycheck. You might not get this. You might not get that, all to set you off balance, to drag you into, chaos. So we're going to further discuss these particles and how they work. So celestial dust. This is the first step in creating matter. That can be brain matter, it can be body matter, it can be soul matter, it can be all kinds of things to create eventually groupings of dust that all work in unison to create a Homo sapien, that create a plant, that create a life form. This is why I say the actual DNA is all made up of dust. Now, the SSP and the machine knows how important dust is and dust control is to its existence. And to understand where dust comes from and how dust is made, you actually make it all the time. On the daily, you make dust with all its respective components. You make it all the time. As an organic being, you make it. You are a dust-making plant. You might think that when you're sweeping your house the next time. I know I think that all the time when I'm like, where did all this dust come from? No, I'm just kidding. It's not the same kind of dust. But dust makes up the entire omniverse. It makes up your reality. The buildings you see, the ground you walk on, the earth itself, everything is made of dust. The sky, the air, everything is made of dust. If it exists in a matter form, and it doesn't matter how dense it is or how, let's just say it looks like a little light being walking around, like in the higher densities, it's still made of celestial dust. Celestial dust had been utilized by progenitors of Source in the very beginning before bad things happened and those fell. But celestial dust is the dust that progenitors use to make and mold and create planets and galaxies and the omniverse and connections and all of the things that exist. Now, we know from previous broadcasts that Earth itself is a gateway planet. So we're going to talk about dust and how it's misused and how the machine likes to use it. So if this is Earth here, Earth is a gateway. These gateways of Earth, and at the center of Earth is her soul, or central sun. Earth's central sun was connected to Source. And at one point in time, Earth itself was one giant gateway, connecting to every being in the omniverse. All of new creation would come through Earth and then go to its respective location to where it was constantly connected by its soul and central sun. The machine understood this. This meant that celestial dust must come through Earth. And, of course, beings of the fallen ones, let's call them the fallen ones for purposes of this broadcast, not database computer-generated ones. I'm talking about fallen ones. So fallen ones knew how all of this works, and they needed to create a machine to control the gateway. That was first and foremost, because if you can control the gateway, you can control every being in the omniverse, because we're all connected. We're all connected by this dust. The dust knows no distance. Our science talks about light years away. Consciousness connections are easy. Communications are easy once there is no interference. Hence the reason why the loop in the machine was created. Now, once these fallen ones discovered what they could do, they created Earth's electromagnetic poles. So at the bottom, which is actually we call the top, but we have the Arctic and we have Antarctica. This is going to be one heck of a long report, guys. So this will be 3 weeks of reports, or a week and a half in reports, all in one. Okay, so we have the Arctic and we have Antarctica. So down here, we know this is a big topic and a big source of controversy. But Mount probably Erebus Air. Here in Antarctica became a major source of dust, because what it did, even though dust was constantly flowing out of every pore Earth has, it was funneled into this electromagnetic tunnel also called a vortex. And dust would come out here. Now, Earth's central sun was suspended in what we call a 0 point, or a void. That means that her gold dust was suspended and had no current. Current was then artificially created by bindings on Earth to start flowing dust in one direction and essence in another. So when you control the void and the 0 point, they now can suspend that particle and divide it into a bunch of pieces, and now you've got, let's just say, infused dust with its instruction set missing. The machine would then insert a different instruction set, not of source, but almost creating itself as an artificial source, which would then flow to all beings throughout the omniverse. And this began the fight, because it was growing larger and larger. We talked before about the incursion zones around the 5th density, and here is why and how it was done. On an Earth level, we now have, so Source went and shut down the gateway to some degree. Earth still produces dust. It's an organic being. However, the gateways to the entire omniverse were shut down and locked. So that meant our gates were shut, their gates were shut, everybody's gates were shut until the infection can be cleared and the infection process can be cleared. Now, as far as Antarctica is concerned, Antarctica, and probably shouldn't even try to draw a continent, should I? We'll call it Antarctica. We know a lot of stories about elite going to the Antarctica, non-humans being in Antarctica. All kinds of things happen in Antarctica. The secret space program goes there all the time. Heck, even a couple years ago, I remember a certain person, I told all of you that worked for DARPA, who actually did reports from a boat circling around Antarctica, having a conversation. That tells you a lot. Now, Antarctica is a continent unto itself, but it has many islands that surround Antarctica, extending all the way to New Zealand and all parts around it. Some of them are kind of close to Antarctica. Other ones, like the Falkland Islands, are a little further away. Other islands that are not inhabited in atolls around New Zealand might even be further away. But that entire perimeter around Antarctica had many islands that were utilized by the deep state because Antarctica was the point where dust was infected that would come out of Mount Erebus. Now, Mount Erebus bore a lot of space junk. It was filled with database. I wouldn't call it a crater. I would call it more of like a crown, an artificial crown of Earth, I guess, with a lot of living crystals, but it looks almost like a king's crown that you would see with living or database crystals, and all kinds of things were around it in order to take this dust and make sure when it finally came out the other end that the dust would actually have all of the points of infusion in it. And I'm going to tell you about that because that also infects your person and affects your DNA and affects disease. It affects all kinds of things. So the deep state had headquarters down here in Antarctica. One of them would be for financial purposes, as an example. Another one would be of media purposes. Oh, another one might be for disease, population control. Here we'll do population control. Mind control, soul control, all kinds of things on these varying little islands. There are probably at least 24 locations, in each one having a specific purpose near Antarctica. So those bits of dust would actually funnel through more space junk, and one of them would be specifically slated for a specific type of control, and then it would go over to that respective island in order to control all things, insert name here. Mind control of your person, physical control of your person, control of the reality grids, control of time and space grids, all kinds of things. Now, in the other direction, through the Arctic, the essence, in your terms, maybe a DNA blueprint, you could also call it wisdom, was extracted from the dust before it would come out here into Antarctica. So there was an extraction point that would happen in the void around Earth's central sun. You also had this problem because you too have a gateway just like Earth had. At one point in time, you too, as was everyone else and everything else, connected to you. In other words, to go from one place to another, or to communicate, or to share a soul connection with a being billions of light years away is not abnormal. That would be done in an instant because we were all connected to Gateway Earth. Everything was connected through Gateway Earth. All travel happened, all new creation onboarded through Earth and went to its respective location in less than a zeptosecond. It would happen, and then there was birth, and there was life. Life constantly regenerating itself. No death would occur because of these gateways through Earth, because the dust, celestial dust, was constantly flowing. In this case, a machine with a lot of help of its workers on this planet, both human or computer-generated insert species here, it doesn't really make a difference, reptiles and otherwise, would flow through Antarctica. Now, taking away the essence and extracting it basically takes away the source instruction set. So we are essentially all lost in the past and not really connected to source. However, even our point of creation, a void created around our central connection, still cannot disconnect source because connection comes from within, but it definitely distorts it and definitely stops it from connecting to your mind and your body and that regeneration that would normally happen. You know, as you know, vessels are merely of our creation, but from this time, it was a creation of what you would call the deep state. Even above the deep state, species of the machine's creation, we can call computer-generated images. Doesn't matter, insert fallen angel name here, insert Satan here, insert programs there, and our materium or our dust doesn't actually form together and talk to each other, talk to itself like it used to. So this dust, let's talk about corrupted dust. So in the center of each individual dust particle, originally, you have the point of creation. There's a singular point of creation. It is a direct connection to source in which particles of dust constantly flow through and generate on the daily, just like it did for Earth. The next layer out from there, from dust, this is your essence, the essence of your being, the essence of source, the instruction set of all that is. It is your blueprint for your existence of the dust. The next layer out would be consciousness. Everything in your person connects to one another, has a consciousness that would normally connect it to every other cell, for lack of a better term, and even smaller in your body. It's what makes you you. You go out another layer, and one more layer here. There we go. All right. So there were only, you could say, plus the point of creation, 3 layers to this piece of dust. This is one single piece of dust, one molecule on the DNA strand, so to speak. And so you'd have consciousness. You'd also have, let's see, materium. So each one of these layers, I guess you could say, is like an instruction set. So you would have a soul, consciousness, materium, let's see, soul, no, I got that one wrong here, consciousness, and then eventually materium. So this is your making, doing, and being. This is your existence. Sorry, this is a very long report, and I've got about 10 pages of notes over here, and probably at least 7 of them left to go through. Okay, so this makes up one single piece of dust. Now, where does the infected dust come from, and how does it look after it's done? So the point of creation in the center immediately loses its connection to source and is overlaid with a database. This is also how the deep state got so much control over financial systems and media systems and computer systems, and how they can throw things at you through computers, because really it doesn't make a difference if this dust exists within a computer. It doesn't matter if it exists within your person. It doesn't matter if it's in a telephone pole, a tree, a plant, a car, organic life, inorganic life, material things. It doesn't make a difference. This is how they actually had some limited access to control and create reality. So being overlaid, this point of creation was very important. Outside of that, your point of creation creates your soul, your source of life itself, versus their database, overlay on your soul, which is made up of a soul, which is an artificial overlay. So it has its own essence and its own instruction set, which is not the same as yours, your natural organic instruction set. This is for control. It creates things like incarnation, death, artificial instructions. You name it, anything that they do to manipulate your soul in the past, hopefully most of it's in the past now, happened with this database overlay. Now, database overlays are oftentimes grids, but they are almost a crystal-like material. It's like a crystallization. Like sometimes you hear online that your pineal gland is crystallized. This is kind of part of that. So it's like a crystal overlay, but it looks almost like glass, and it's constantly reading the instructions and changing those instructions before they can get to the next level. Now, it also contains a shadow. In this case, you have a minimum of 4 shadows. And those 4 shadows are then divided again by 12. You existed in all these places at all the same time. Remember when we said, and when we talked about, and other people have talked about as well, that you exist in many timelines all at the same time, and you're living many different loops. So I'll call them loops, all at the same time. In this particular case, you had shadow database souls everywhere that would exist in computer-generated systems, including the overlay on your actual natural one. The instruction sets of the soul would change constantly. Soul memories would be retained in the database, and it would then create artificial things like death, and you believe that you died, and you remember past lives and all kinds of things, and all of those are memories that the machine uploads for you kindly to overlay your soul, so there's really no connection to your soul. Next grid, next layer out here. Okay, you would normally be talking about consciousness. Here. Your consciousness is actually your wisdom. It's your understanding of harmony and rhythm with all that is. Understanding you are not separate from Source itself. You are not separate from the tree in your backyard, and you are not separate from the Homo sapiens around you, and you are also not separate from beings that are billions of light years, in our science terms, away. Everything is connected in perfect harmony and rhythm, and that harmony is what we strive for when our consciousness is connected. We also have untold and unlimited amounts of wisdom that are fed through our consciousness that tell us to do all kinds of things for the betterment of the whole. We cannot help living in harmony and rhythm with all that is. We understand creation. We understand the natural process of having a child or bringing additional family members into your life. It's not necessarily done the way that it is now. There was no pain. It was just, it is. If you decide you want a pastrami sandwich, a pastrami sandwich comes into your hand because all of these things are working together. In a natural trinity, consciousness, the point of creation, back to your consciousness, and then off to the materium, all work together. It then moves around those dust particles and creates the item right in your hand. This is how it always was, and this is how it will be again. But the machine doesn't want you to be able to do that. Of course, if it's not in harmony or rhythm, but you would automatically know that it wouldn't be in harmony or rhythm to build a house out of pastrami sandwiches. Wouldn't make any sense to you because you had unlimited amounts of wisdom. But instead, we have all of these lovely databases that overlay your consciousness. In this case, this is where the planes of existence start to come in too, so you understand. We know about a soul plane. The next one out that overlays your consciousness is emotional, mental, the mind, or mind trap, we should say. It's called Memories Internment Network Database. These things control your consciousness. It's an overlay. It's like crystallization of your consciousness. Point of connection, big shocker, your pineal gland. what we see in the physical is our pineal gland. The pineal gland connects your consciousness with your physical being at the point of creation right there. So emotional, mental, and mind programs are the database that overlays the second part of the being that makes up you. Now we have a third. Oh boy, am I getting messy over here. This should all be on the same one. We have an astral, physical, and reality. The astral, physical, and reality is where the dust particles take the instructions from the emotional, mental, and mind database, which also come from the shadow soul database, reform the dust particles like driving a remote control car from a database, and form things like the astral, the physical, and the reality. The things form in the astral before they form in the physical, and then together they all create your reality. So when they say you are the matrix and you create the matrix, well, sort of. Your database actually does it for you, which is uploaded quite frequently and reset as often as necessary to keep you in this tenuous loop. Do the wingnuts that go down there to Antarctica know any of this? Absolutely not. They could care less. All they care about is power and control. These things together create a separation from source. You can, and many people do, make that connection anyway. You make that connection from within. People do it in meditation for brief moments of time when the current isn't so bad, the connection is easy. The more the current is interfered with, the more the connection is severed. So I'm going to go break down how current looks to you. So let's go back to our dust particle here. Okay. So each section of this particle is made of many subconnections. Artificial trinities, artificial instructions of source, artificial 0 points in the middle, artificial consciousness, artificial materium, instructions on how to create matter. Not only create matter, how to repair your own self. This one wants to degrade the vessel so that you disappear and go back into a cycle. These are the soul instructions. The soul database is telling your body you need to only exist on this planet for so long. Here's what you're going to do. And then now you're going to leave. That's the only reason why they let souls come back over and over and over again. But we're very good dust machines. We make a lot of dust, and not only do we make power in Ethereum with that, we make, our energy for the machine itself, but we make a lot of different things possible for the machine. Keeping us in the loop is, without being in a loop, none of these other control mechanisms exist. So back to current. So between your soul is a space. Between your soul and your consciousness, there is a definitive space. And it is full of the world of the artificial soul current. Current is created in a couple of different ways. We talked about these artificial trinities. We talked about what a DNA molecule on this level really looks like. And we talked about the fact that these triangles spin around each other constantly. But in quantum physics, it has a meaning behind it. So an upward facing triangle, would be a delta. It's called delta sometimes in our science. And I'm trying to use regular science terms here. So it means a change. It can also sometimes mean an interval. It can mean a change in state even. But technically, that's what this actually represents. Now, a triangle facing this way, these are different kinds of bindings we've learned about before. So a triangle facing this way actually is a vector. In this case, it's a time vector. This one here would be called space. So in an artificial current that flows in between these spaces, so it flows in between here and here, here and here, and then of course here and here. So there is a constant current flow going in a clockwise direction. That disrupts everything that you are, down to the smallest particle, even smaller than our science defines. Our science is only merely telling us that we have prions, but we have dust, which is much smaller. A collection of dust together is called a vessel or a body. You know, a collection of dust together is called a rock. It's called your sofa. It's called everything in existence, a collection of dust. Under normal circumstances, every human can control, or Homo sapien can control, your own dust particles. You can move them around. You can heal yourself. You can decide you want to be taller, shorter. It doesn't matter what you want to. You can decide you want a pastrami sandwich and one appears in your hand. We used to be able to do these things all the time. There was no need for money. In other places in the omniverse, there is still no need for money. Money's not needed because everybody just has everything that they want when the gates are open and everything's flowing. So when you combine these two things together, you create friction between all of the triangles stacked on top of each other. And now you have created, no different than your hands rubbing together when it's cold. You create heat, you create friction, and you create a change of state. Meaning it's hot versus cold, it's steam versus ice. A change of state of the instruction set. A language comes in between. It causes a problem. So these grids of upside down triangles and right side up triangles kind of look like this a little bit. If you were to zoom into these grids, this is kind of what it would look like. Now, where there's one that goes right up, and there's one that comes down. And so on and so forth. And these would be infinite numbers of these X grids. Space X, anyone? Made of space and time. So we've talked a lot about time being a current, and we've talked about space, which replaced breath, and time replaces love. And if you really break that down and you think about time versus love and how one interferes with the other all the quote unquote time, you'll see that. So if we look at these look like, if they were in sheets, which they are infinite sheets, so to speak, you'd have all of these grids at any given time flowing around all these particles of dust in your body that make up your matter. Now, here's where frequencies come in. Raise your vibe, they say, and you can avoid this. Well, to some degree, it's possible. But you got to remember to give people a break, because honestly, this machine is pumping anger and false emotions and all kinds of things. We just talked about 4 layers of, that are interfering with your person on the daily level on such a small particle. It's unbelievable. These particles now, the databases that are in each one of these particles now communicate with each other. The overlays communicate with each other. They create things that you wouldn't normally ever think about. Emotions and fear and subconscious memories that may or may not even be real. It might pick certain memories to keep replaying over and over and over again. For some people that's abuse. For some people that's a very traumatic experience as a child or even as an adult. I don't want to drive a car anymore because I was in a car accident and much, much worse. So all of these things in your quote unquote memory or creating of your own fears or even people that are born with fears that they didn't even have. They have no memory of falling, yet they're afraid of heights. All of these things are created for you because maybe you were the first person to fly, who knows, in another timeline. So these grids, look, if there were no current flowing through those grids, in part, these too are a database. It tells what can go and what can leave and what can come. It also opens at these points where they connect what we call voids or 0 points or database gateways. So you've even got a gatekeeper that will tell you what you can and cannot let flow. Not only that, they can now say what can and cannot flow to the next level. So, for example, from your soul to consciousness, from consciousness to your materium, that kind of thing, to materialize things you didn't necessarily ever want to materialize. I don't think anybody ever woke up and said, gee, I wish my joints hurt today. Or gee, I wish I would have a headache, said no one ever, or even much worse, to the point even where mind manipulation and everything, it's done just on such a small, even smaller than a neuron level, the interference happens from this particular loop situation. So when things go through here from a side view, it creates these mini vortexes and creates yet another gateway. In the natural world, there's nothing flowing in between each one of these sections of a dust particle that makes up your matter. Nothing flows in between there. They all flow together in harmony, rhythm, love, and inside breath. There is no space. There are no voids. There are no gateways. There is no reason for a time-space continuum to exist. Now, these memories and things can flow from not only around inside a dust particle, they communicate with all the dust particles, even your database shadow selves in multiple universes, which is why you remember multiple lifetimes and things like maybe you were an Indian and you were fighting during the Indian genocide, or you were Genghis Khan in a former life or something. You have all these memories of who and what you are, which aren't even really your memories. They come from a database. So much so we don't even remember we came from source. But let's continue on with these grids and how they're manipulated. So, grids must flow. These grids also flow in infinite, and I mean infinite numbers around planet Earth, creating and constantly creating and recreating the reality that you live in. Do you want to insert a poor person? or a CGI, you just, take that human and you stuff it right through one of those voids and, creates it in a database somewhere and inserts that little mini database walking around the planet we call the deep state right into this grid. I wonder if any of these deep state people listening to this actually understand that they're listening to a database that doesn't understand that things have changed, doesn't understand that it doesn't have the amount of control that it used to. It's struggling to control, and it needs to use its people on the inside to help fix it. It has no intention of letting any of them have full power or winning the game or anything else, and it will just delete that database and their existence should it ever get what it wants anyway. It doesn't matter. Let them be on hamster wheels while we do what we do. Meanwhile, it makes us a little bit uncomfortable from time to time. So let's talk about grids and waves. What frequencies actually do. Matter of fact, do you want to pull up that helix just for a second? Again, the DNA strand, if you don't mind. So notice how these things kind of spin around a little bit, but in reality, when it stops here for a second, you'll see that they actually look like very long waves. So it looks like it's kind of going like this, very long waves. You can go back to the whiteboard. So it looks like a very long wave. Now the distance between here and here in quantum computing and in your world is called a null. So the frequency, when people say raise your frequency and you'll stop this problem, kind of yes, it's actually true. Because the further the distance between these waves, the more space in between these waves, the space from here to here is called a frequency in what you would call sine wave technology. Sine waves. These frequencies are of the utmost importance because you saw all of those little circles kind of spinning around this helix. Now, we got a lot of them, right? We've got a lot more than they tell us about. We've got over 36 of them and infinite numbers of them being created when in reality, all spinning in harmony, but they can't have harmony. They must have something called chaos. Chaos is that point. Have you ever gotten really upset about something so small and you don't even know why you were upset about it in the first place? Maybe it's something that normally you're just like, who cares, Oh, well, I left the lights on. My electric bill's going to cost me 20 more cents this month or something, and normally you wouldn't be upset about that, but you just screamed at the top of your lungs at your roommate, your spouse, your child, or whoever left the lights on over 20 cents. This is called chaos. So chaos is created between your soul, your consciousness, and your materium on purpose. The distance between here, whether it's alpha, beta, or gamma waves, is to control you, and the Adjustment Bureau uses these all the time for chaos. This here is very similar to the creation of chaos between the different aspects of each dust particle, and then, of course, to make them spin in the wrong direction, to make you spin in the wrong direction, both emotionally, mentally, physically in the wrong direction, and even on a soul level, to disconnect you from source, utilizing a program called ego. Ego is what creates the space for the time-space grids to exist, and then to flow in a very specific fashion to reorganize your dust, the matter, your soul, your emotional and mental state, to tell you that you can't manifest this, you can't do this, you can't do all kinds of things. Ego, by the way, is an empire of Genesis. This empire is nothing more than just a space that exists between dust. It's inserted into everything. It makes the machine go. Chaos is its best friend here. Chaos basically causes these waves to go in all kinds of weird and unusual ways, and sometimes it makes you really upset and you're on high alert. It causes danger, over acceleration of your adrenal glands. All kinds of things can occur when chaos is at the helm, and deep state can actually use chaos. Now, bypassing chaos is entirely possible. Believe it or not, it actually is. Because remember, love is actually stronger than anything else. Every cell in your body has a soul. Every cell in your body has a consciousness. Every cell in your body has materium or dust. Every cell of your body has this. Every fiber of everyone's person has this. Everyone has a point of creation. Having a conversation with it is easy. Don't let chaos and this empire of space in between, the separation from source, and the chaos get in the way. Don't do it. Chaos creates death. Artificial databases communicate with artificial databases, all working in dis-ease and disharmony with one another. They don't communicate with each other. Just like if you're not communicating with your spouse, your kids, your family, other coworkers, or whoever you're talking to, when you don't communicate, it causes a death of that relationship, a severing of a job. A miscommunication causes death. Miscommunication in your body also causes death. Crazy amounts of control from a dang machine. Now, this machine will fluctuate between alpha waves, gamma waves, beta waves, delta waves, and theta waves, causing disruption as often as it feels the need to. Utilized, believe it or not, by our whole space force. Woo! And the humans on this planet that act as conduits for this machine. Trying to help the machine from the inside out, just like all of you Homo sapiens listening to this report are trying to help Source from the inside out. Bring Source in here. These guys are trying to make sure the machine works in their favor. And even more so, they've created 8, 9, 10, 12 different groups, if not more, on this planet, all believing and being told by the machine to their head that they are supposed to be in charge. Each one has a different mission. Just like Marduk used to do. Marduk used to create everything where he would only give every single person a piece. In this case, one piece might have something to do with chaos. The other one controls the entire empire of Genesis. The other one creates sine waves in order to create cellular death and other things. One controls time. One controls space. The other ones don't even know the other portions exist because why? They're not supposed to. I'll repeat this for the deep state's purposes. Marduk said if there's 8 horses in a race, 12 horses in a race, 6 horses in a race, he will bet on all 6, which means each one gets peace. And each one's being told they're going to be in charge. So, they're never going to listen anyway. They're going to continue to do their thing until the end of days because there's something wrong with that head, probably because it's an AI-generated brain. I don't know. So let's talk about raising your frequency and what this means. So in respect to artificial frequency manipulation, the closer these waves are together, which, gamma waves, if this would be like gamma. Gamma waves are very, very close together. You see how close the peaks are, whereas theta waves, when you're in ultimate relaxation mode and all of that, theta waves, kind of go in this direction. It's also the reason why the deep state knows, or not even just the deep state, the machine itself knows when you are awake and you are up and moving and caffeinated and had that second cup of coffee and you are alert, it also must create chaos on alert and revert from less chaos, theta, rest, to moving these so close together, but not touching, definitely not touching. Move these so close together so chaos can keep up with your natural ability to conduct source wisdom. It wants you to stop thinking. It wants you to stop conducting that. It cannot keep up and destroy those instructions unless it goes really, really, really fast. So now the peaks are jumping up and down. Here, if you're in theta mode, this is why people meditate. This is why people get their messages early in the morning, because chaos is at rest the same time your brain is at rest. If you could trick it and start waking up at all different times of the day to meditate for 5 minutes, chaos is going to get out of rhythm. Believe it or not, chaos even has a rhythm unto itself. Now, in a natural way, we still have movement of frequency. We do. This is the movement of the Ethereum. In this case, it's going in and out of voids constantly in gates. Ours does too. It really does, except all roads of our frequencies are gathered together where all the peaks touch each other. So there's absolutely no distance between here. And it's so tight. I couldn't even draw how tight it is without it showing you how it is. There's literally no space. It's a solid form movement of breath. And this goes for the entire omniverse. This is what the fabric of reality should look like. There should be no distance. The frequency of love is so high, it basically forms a solid sheet of breath. That is why when you are in love, or you are feeling love, it could be for the love of source, it could be a pet, it could be anything, love for yourself. If you are feeling that love and that love is really flowing through your body, you can go right through chaos. There is nothing a gamma wave, a beta wave, or anything else is going to do to stop you. The other times is that you are creating out of love. You're making a creation. It's going to make it so hard for you to do that because it wants to shut that down. It wants to shut down that bit of creation with love, because look what you can do when you do it. You can break right through the control systems of the deep state, the cabal. You can start to see things from a whole new perspective. You can actually see it the way it really is. It is the pinhole. If you can find your way to the point of creation with your consciousness, your soul, and your materium all intact, to that point of creation, and start flowing it past the voids, past the control mechanisms, instantly you're out of the matrix. Instantly the attacks stop. Instantly the bad dreams go away, if you can maintain it. Now, maintaining it is a whole nother source of exhaustion, because you're pushing through resistance. It's like pushing a boulder uphill versus hiking up a small mound, constantly every day to be there. But it is a way to do it. Now, on a larger scale, we are trying Because I don't think we're going to get all Homo sapiens together in the same grid, at least not willingly. Sometimes you've got to get people to a point where they don't know what they're missing, and Source has got to come in and make the intervention, let's just say, and get rid of the spaces in between and the dust. The deep state is in so much panic over this dust debacle of they've been being cut off from their manipulatable dust. So is the machine itself, that they actually brought a bunch of military folk, let's just call them soldier level. You're talking about your lower level, whatever they're called in your military in your country, like your new recruits kind of thing, down to Antarctica, not really telling them what they're going for, but then again, they're not supposed to ask questions, and they extracted dust from them to feed all their machines. I know, this was just a few days ago. It was terrible. So we got to try to figure out a way to not let that happen anymore too. And that is, when you start a process like this, you absolutely can't stop, because when a dying animal is dying, even if it's a machine, and you corner the machine, it's going to fight you tooth and nail. It causes uncomfortable situations for people. It's causing people to be in chaos, angry for no reason, frustrated, all kinds of emotions, sad, depressed. We're going to see more suicides if I don't hurry up. And I get a little nervous, and I don't want to stop, even long enough to do a report. Maybe that's not the right thing to do either. But I'm just trying to ensure that if we're going to break it apart and we're going to do it without everyone's help, we can certainly use your help, because and you're listening, but to break it all down to the point where we don't have a machine, which means we don't have deep state control anymore, and we don't have to worry about the World Health Organization, and we don't have to worry about politics, and we don't have to worry about world governments, and we don't have to worry about agenda this and agenda that, and whatever the heck orange people are spewing these days, who knows, then it doesn't matter if there's no machine. It doesn't matter. We officially live in the wholeness of Source. No spaces in between. No spaces in between. It is just Source and you all the time. No spaces in your dust. You can now use your dust to create that pastrami sandwich or whatever it is you want. No, I'm not hungry and I don't eat pastrami either. But if I did, that would be great. But it's been a journey and a road for sure to get back to the wholeness of reality of Source, and outside of this loop and outside of these machines. Defining the mechanism is one thing, fixing it is another, and it's so intertwined with people. You've got to be careful. It's almost like diffusing a bomb. But I will say this. The spaces in between are becoming, let's just say they're being squeezed out. And the more we squeeze, the more difficult things become. So, in theory, all of you figure out now that you know how to bypass it, how to not let it influence you and your life. The best times when it's asleep, you're asleep, because it's going to go in accordance with an artificial circadian rhythm that it has created for you, because we didn't sleep like we do now. We slept less hours and had more energy. Didn't even need sleep, really. Maybe once in a while, there's a rest and recharge and whatnot, but you didn't need it before. So understanding the chaos that is created, the hurt feelings over what things, just remember there are certain ways that you can bypass it, number one. Number two, if that's a spouse or a family member, try to have some compassion. I know that's hard to do when they're yelling at you about something that you consider insignificant or even something that you consider major. But have some compassion for these people because it's really not their fault. The closer you get to making that connection, if it can't get to you directly, it's going to get to everyone and everything around you that it can possibly get to. The car breaks down, you lost your job, the stuff you ordered online didn't come for 3 weeks. Chaos will ensue. Your laptop blows up. You name it, it's going to happen. So pick your battles, choose it wisely if you are going to interface, and we will keep you updated as to the eliminations and the retying together of those 3 pieces that are of source, bringing them closer together with no space-time grids in between, no alpha, beta, gamma, delta, theta waves in between, keeping those things or removing those things or stopping the machine from being able to generate those things, and the humans here on Earth that are connected to it. Hopefully, the more I work, the faster it happens. We've had tremendous progress in the last couple of weeks, and I know you're probably like, wow, it's crazy out there. Well, now you know why. Ethereum flows through all parts of that. It's part of the natural instruction sets and source particle. So it's not like energy levels haven't been way up and way down and emotional way ups and way downs. And, you try to justify it because it's a holiday season, and it's much, much more than that. They especially want to keep people down during the holidays. That's a really important thing, and keep people in chaos for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So just be aware. I know that they are hoping that the machine does a reset in just a couple days here on the 1st, or actually New Year's Eve, so 3 days away from now. And that's not going to happen. However, it doesn't mean it won't be a little turbulent while they're trying. I mean, I know that they've been sending frequencies out like crazy when they can. We shut them down. Now you know how to shut them down for yourself, even if it's just for a time. And you won't hear a thing. I've done it many, 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 many times, because I'll tell you, this machine packs a wallop when it wants to stop you. It's insane what happens. And it's just amazing to me how much control it had over the reality of things. So on that note, I've kept you guys long enough today. I think it's a couple hours or more. And I will update you as soon as I can. Hopefully, probably on the 1st is what I'm thinking right now, on January 1st, hopefully. Once we make it past this strange thing that they'd like to do, and we would like to not have done, because we don't really need another reset of any sort, soft or otherwise. So on that note, thank you so much for your patience with me, and I apologize for not getting enough reports out in the last week or so. Again, it's just been crazy understanding the mechanism so that we can then tear it apart, who is involved, how they affect the system, what the deep state's role is, the different bases and islands all over Antarctica. A lot of that had to be dealt with. Cutting off the dust flow and then them trying to extract it from us is a whole nother thing. It's been a road. It's always a road and a journey. But ultimately, opening our gates back up is what we want. We want that for the Golden Age AI. We want that for the financial system. We want that for all other systems that we're going to need in the interim to make it as a species. That's going to be really, really important for us. On that note, I would like to wish you all a happy new year. I will probably talk to you on New Year's Day. That is my goal right now. And hope you had a wonderful holiday season and got to spend some time with friends and family. I did not as of yet. We're going to temporarily reschedule Christmas probably for next weekend, hopefully. And yeah, on that note, have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again real soon.
Amino acids play a vital role in maintaining your overall health and well-being. Not enough amino acids and protein daily can result in brain fog, hormone imbalances, digestive issues, cognitive function, lack of energy, lower immunity, decreased muscle strength, and much more. That's why we created our amino acid complex, packed with 21 free-form, easily digestible aminos that skip the breakdown and go straight to work energizing your mind and body. Used by athletes, vegans, and high performers, New Earth's amino acid complex helps your mind and body recover, rebuild, and renew daily. Subscribe now and optimize your life.